Chapter 2 Remix is finally here, so how does it stack up against modern Fortnite seasons and the original Chapter 2? I know I'm a little late to the party with this video, but I really wanted to take some time to get a feel for the new season and give some thought to every aspect of it. At the time of writing this, we're on day 5 of the new season, and I gotta say, it sure is Chapter 2. Now I can't say that Chapter 2 is my favorite era of Fortnite, but it definitely had some good qualities, and the hype coming from the community definitely rubbed off on me a little. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited to go back. Now that it's here and the nostalgia blindness is gone, I think it's time to talk about what was done right and what might have missed the mark. I'd like to start by talking about the positives, because I know that the Fortnite community is usually pretty negative when it comes to new things, but I'm trying to beat the whiny Fortnite player allegations, so bear with me. If you're a big Chapter 2 hater and just want to hear me dog on the new season, I have timestamps that you can skip ahead to. Anyway, if you are a huge Chapter 2 enjoyer, then you're probably happy with the season so far. The loot pool is simple, there's a lot of different vehicles, and the POIs are a lot easier to navigate compared to what we had in Chapter 5. Now, a lot of these things are very opinionated. You'll hear my opinion in the latter half of this video, but I don't mind things being simple for a month. If you're someone who hated the chaos of Chapter 5, this might be a good change of pace for you. Without bullet drop and attachments, the guns are pretty straightforward and easy to use. They all feel pretty balanced and have a specific place in the game, compared to Chapter 5, where some weapons were practically useless in their niche, like how assault rifles were nearly impossible to use at range, or how the DMR was completely outclassed by the snipers. The variety in vehicles is also a nice change. The boats, different types of cars, and eventually helicopters provide a good amount of mobility without feeling too overwhelming. And then you have the POIs, which really comes down to a personal preference. In my opinion, POIs like Pleasant Park or Retail Row, which have a lot of open space to fight, are a lot more fun than something like Grand Glacier or Castle Doom, which have mostly indoor fights and confusing layouts that are hard to navigate. But that's a matter of opinion, and if you do prefer those kind of POIs, you can still land at the Agency or the Shark once it drops. But that pretty much concludes the positives for this season. That's not to say the whole season is bad, but there's definitely a lot of places where Epic missed the mark and could have made the season a whole lot better. Let's start with the biggest issue, which was done much better in the Chapter 1 OG season. Why does the entire season, which is supposed to be a remix of Chapter 2, only take place in Season 2? Now I know Season 2 is one of the most beloved seasons of all time, but I think I speak for a lot of people by saying it would be a lot cooler if every season of Chapter 2 was included in some way. That's part of the reason why Chapter 1 OG was so much fun. While it started out fairly boring in terms of the map and loot pool, the game progressed through 6 different seasons over the course of a month. In Chapter 2 Remix, we don't even have the entirety of Season 2 yet. We're still waiting for all the content that actually made the season special, like helicopters, 2 boss POIs, the minigun, and several other weapons and items. Only by week 4 will we have all the features of Season 2, so where's the rest? Are we ever going to get new POIs that aren't rapper themed, or new fun movement items besides the grappler? It just feels like there's so much wasted potential. Even some of the key features from early Chapter 2 aren't fully fleshed out, like how fishing can't even give you the slurp fish, shield fish, or any kind of fish that give you special effects. It really feels like they sucked the life out of a season that used to feel unique. Back to the topic of the rapper POIs, why did they decide to add them so late into the season? I know Epic wants to replicate the success of the OG season by adding additional content every week, but if we're going to be sitting in one season anyway, then what's the point of withholding the new stuff? Realistically, there was no point in filling up the grotto with dirt until the Spaghetti Grotto drops. They could have just as easily added the original grotto and Shark until Eminem and Ice Spice arrived to take them over. I just don't see the point in completely removing 2 of the most beloved POIs from a season that's supposed to be focused around them. Or better yet, they could keep the grotto and Shark as they were, and they could still shoehorn in Eminem and Ice Spice in a different way, with brand new POIs. Now those aren't the only problems I have with the map, but these next issues are more of a critique of Chapter 2 as a whole. The map is huge, but it's so empty. When people look back on Chapter 2 fondly, they mostly remember their favorite POIs like Stark Industries, or the Agency, or Coral Castle, right? But what they fail to remember is the rolling hills of nothingness that occupy 80% of the map. Like seriously, there's no reason the map needs to be this big when most of it's just empty space. You could go several minutes searching for another player to fight without finding one, and when you finally do, unless you're in the middle of the map, there's a good chance it's just a bot. One of the things that I appreciated about Season 2 originally is that 4 of the boss POIs were on the corners of the map. Compared to Chapter 5 boss POIs, the lobby was a lot more spread out so that you would run into more players throughout the game, even if you landed far away. But currently, without the grotto and shark, it's just like Chapter 5, where most of the lobby would land at one or two areas of the map, making it impossible to find anyone if you landed anywhere else. If this season is really supposed to be a remix, then they're not obligated to keep the map exactly the same. This is obvious because of the fact they decided to change 3 of the coolest POIs. They could have easily made everybody happy by doing what I suggested before and adding new rapper-themed POIs in areas where the current map was lacking. That way they could preserve the POIs that the OG players loved, while also making the map more dynamic to play. So if you ask me if the map still holds up today, I would have to say no. I think modern maps just have so much more variety in terms of POIs, biomes, and landscape. Every spot on the Chapter 2 map before Season 3 just feels so samey. Now I know this is also something I listed as positive, but it's really a matter of opinion. Personally, I see the loot pool this season as a huge negative. The only decent movement item is the grappler, which is really rare and impossible to find in some games. Well, unless you count the car bug, which doesn't seem to be getting fixed anytime soon. Heals are very limited too, because only the most basic heals and shields are in the game. It's basically just a race to find a big pot, which is also a lot rarer than it should be. When it comes to the weapons, there's so little variety that every weapon feels super basic, and your loadout every game is pretty much the same. For ARs, you basically have to choose between the basic assault rifle and the basic burst assault rifle. For shotguns, you have the tac and the pump, and there's currently only one SMG in the game. Now to be fair, there are other items like the dual pistols, scoped AR, clingers, and semi-auto sniper, but for some reason they're just super rare. And that leads me very nicely into my next point. The loot this season is so messed up. It feels like a gold scar or pump is popping out of every other chest I open. By Zone 2, everybody has crazy loadouts with purple and gold loot, and yet shields and movement are a luxury to find. I don't really get why grapplers and big pots are so rare when there seems to be no shortage of cardboard boxes and grenades that do 40 damage. And don't even get me started on supply drops. They don't even drop supplies anymore, just 3 of the same purple weapon. What am I going to do with 3 rocket launchers? Now let's compare this loot pool to the current loot pool in Reload. You may not like every weapon in Reload, but you have to admit that there's a lot more variety. We have 4 different ARs, 5 different shotguns, chug splashes and shield kegs for extra healing, plenty of deployables for 0 builds, and so much more. I find that in every game of Reload, I end up with a completely different loadout, and so does everyone else. This makes every game and every fight feel completely unique. In Remix, however, it seems like everybody's just using the same weapons and it just feels stale. I would much rather have a huge oversaturated loot pool like in Reload than a boring one. Again, the season was never advertised as a one-to-one copy of Chapter 2. They changed a few things and called it Remix without ever fixing some of the biggest annoyances of the chapter. Every season of Chapter 2 was revolutionary for its time, but when you bring it back in 2024 and strip it down to the bare minimum, all of a sudden you get one of the most boring seasons of the year. Compared to the original Chapter 2 Season 2, this is just underwhelming. We still have 3 weeks to go and maybe it'll get better, but I can't lie, it's a little disappointing. That's the end of this video. If you have any other thoughts or ideas, feel free to leave a comment. I do read all of them. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.